Soumitra is based out of Silicon Valley. He is an investor. He has been a founder. He has been on. He has worked with various investment firms as well. He has deep expertise across India-US corridor and having worked with Alibaba, IDG Ventures, and he's also been a founder of Workomo. Soumitra, you are based out of Silicon Valley, and what is the mood on the ground right now?
I think I'm kind of leaning towards uneasy optimism. So I think it's a consensus view, right? That we are sitting on probably the biggest tech inflection since the rise of the internet in the 90s. So it's a consensus view. Everyone is super excited about the power of what AI will do across sectors, across industries. But there's also a lot of unease. And I think the unease this time is because I think the rate of change that AI is kind of seeing as a technology has not been seen before. I think just the sheer pace at which models are getting better, big companies, startups are adapting to it, reacting to it, policy changes, geopolitical angles, various countries, from DeepSeek to India, kind of thinking about its own AI strategy. There's so much going on, and every month there is new things happening.
Every day.
Yeah, every day actually, Jared. And I think that is what is making everyone very uneasy. And we can go into the depth of, I think, a lot of these aspects, but I think general kind of TLDR comments. So there are kind of three stakeholders, the way I would kind of frame um, the mood, AI mood. So there are big companies, there are startups, and then there is talent, right, which is kind of working in the tech ecosystem, right? So let's take kind of each of them one by one. So I think big companies is very interesting. And I think some of you would have kind of probably seen or read about the 90s when kind of the dot-com wave happened, right? A bunch of companies got disrupted. So the IBMs of the world got disrupted back in the day. And then as mobile happened, um, Nokia had a big head start, right? They got disrupted. Um, in a lot of cases, in a lot of kind of ways, Intel got disrupted by Qualcomm, by Nvidia. Um, so there has always been this trend of whenever a new tech wave happens, the incumbents get disrupted. It actually looks different this time.
Okay.
And I think one of the key changes is that if you think about an IBM in the 90s, or if you think about a Nokia, or if you think about even Microsoft, like Microsoft majorly missed mobile and just somehow hung on to cloud, right? And the larger scheme of things, they would say that they actually lost on cloud as well, right? So it was the whole Steve Ballmer, that era. They were all run as corporates, right? They were run by professional managers. Today, the FANG companies and the large tech companies are actually still run by founders, right? So Zuck is actually in his prime. Brian Chesky is in his prime, right? Jensen, I mean, freaking, he's 61 years old. You look at the guy, he has more energy than I think a lot of 20-year-olds, right? So these founders are still running these large companies.
They're still able to bring that energy
So
to the.
they are reacting very fast to this, right? And founder mindset is always different, right? Because founders are always, they understand because they build these companies that you have to be ahead of the nine ball, right? So that's
From first principles, or they look at the long term game.
and they are making very drastic changes, and we can talk about a lot of those. We can double click on a lot of these things, but that's kind of the TLDR, right? So this time the incumbents are, and they have, of course, all the classic distribution advantages, data, right?
Got a much better position to take advantage.
One better position, yeah. Even like Mark Benioff, everyone is like on it right now, right? Everyone is just invigorated by it.
Jeff Bezos took kind of Armstrong away and then he came back.
Absolutely. I mean, Sergey and Larry, and I particularly have, a lot of kind of people in Google. And so I have a very deep view of them over the last 8-10 years. And now the founders are back. They're coding, right? I mean, that's huge and they were pretty checked out for the last few years. So there is the whole incumbent game, right? So, but the incumbents they're confused. They don't know how this is going to play out, right? So they're trying to, that's why I kind of keep pace with the change, right? So they're taking drastic calls. They're trying to quickly react. They don't want to be behind everything, right? But it's still unclear. Like alls are unclear. What should a AI native product org look like?
the org structure itself or the job roles.
Job roles. What should be the right mix of experienced versus fresh talent in engineering, right?
Or where should the boundaries be in terms of what you deliver as a
Exactly. Even processes, right? In all these tech companies, they get very middle heavy in the last 10 years and they are hugely profitable. So that's why I think everyone was kind of milking it. So I think there is a whole, so that is kind of the big company incumbent, what I call as incumbent bucket. Startups, again, very interesting, right? A lot of optimism from investors, from founders. I think this is at least, and I've been in the Bay Area for about 11 years. So I lived through the entire mobile and cloud wave, right? I was kind of a beneficiary of that. This is almost after 10 years, and I'm seeing like a new influx of talent, right? And a lot of people are saying this is reminding them of 2006, 2007, right? So a lot of new talent coming in, a lot of excitement, a lot of risk capital. But again, it is unclear. You look at the infrastructure layer, there is OpenAI, there is Anthropic. Each of the big companies have their models, there's foundation models. Then you have the closed source versus open source debate. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Applications, yes, in the last wave, applications won big time. But then all the application winners emerge later. So then is Perplexity a real winner? Is it likely to be a winner? Who knows? So again, a lot of money going in.
because again even the foundation models, they are trying to get into that space.
Exactly. Should we go full stack? Where will the value accrue? What gets commoditized? Right. Uh, Again, unclear. Now, again, even in startups, the previous waves always had a fresh set of startups coming in, right? So when mobile happened, social happened, post the launch of the iPhone, there were a new generation of founders. Now, again, this time it is different. Well, there are 1,000 unicorns from the cloud and mobile wave. Each of them is at 100, 200, 300, 400 million ARR. Founders are still there at the helm. They all have traction. They all have distribution. They all have capital. Will they be able to adapt to AI? We don't know. So again, a lot of unease and uncertainty. Third bucket is talent. I think talent is today in the trickiest situation, at least from a Bay Area lens that I've seen in my career. And I'm seeing it both in kind of fresh people coming out of college, also in kind of what I would call as the middle layer, midlife professionals, right? So somebody like who's in 35, who maybe 50 kind of age group, right? The classic middle layer in a company. If you see a lot of freshers are, a lot of young people are actually not getting jobs on campus, right? Because companies are unclear of how much to hire, who to hire, what is the kind of skill set. So yeah, if you are a whatever an ML engineer or a AI PhD from Stanford, you are in demand. But then what about all the other people coming out who typically become product managers, entry level developers, program managers, strategy, operations, right? I mean, you're thinking about McKinsey's and Deloitte's getting disrupted. So that they are in stress and they are having to relearn, right? They are like, okay, all the toolkit is changing. So whatever I learned in college, is it applicable? Do I need to reskill myself after what I've learned in university? The older middle management is totally getting wiped out of large companies. And there it's very interesting, Raghu, because a lot of their roles ended up becoming very workflow, pick, very brutally paper pushing,
Hmm.
right? Which is make decks.
That's postbox.
Yeah, make Excel sheets. Somebody sets a vision, strategy. I will translate it into some sort of document,
Version.
document, and then I will drive execution. So I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not like in the front lines. And I'm also not senior enough
To be setting the vision.
to be setting the vision and driving strategy, right? I don't have that depth of expertise. Now and it all started mainly with Zuckerberg and to some extent that Elon and then Jensen, right? Where they said that, look, the need of the hour, and so back calculated from what the need of the hour is. Because the pace of change is so fast, they said we have to move fast. And then they just looked at very intellectually honestly, and this is what a founder would do. Corporates would never do this because there are all kinds of incentives. But like these kind of startups, you have to be intellectually honest. And like, what is slowing us down, right? So Zuck just went berserk in terms of, I think, and Google had a massive round of layoffs very recently. Pretty much the director level layer has been wiped out in Silicon Valley. They're wiped out. So talent, a lot of unease again. So TLDR again, very lot of optimism at a macro level, very exciting times, but a lot of uncertainty.
So how do we process it? So no, like focusing on the third bucket, the career bucket. There are people in all these kind of roles, and what should we do, or what should they do in order to prevent themselves from getting into that kind of a fate?
Yeah, and in fact, I had kind of prepared some talking points just to make it very tactical and useful actually for the audience. And actually, just today, while I was on a flight from Bangalore, um, I was on X, and then I saw this very interesting kind of image that one guy had shared. So I'll read it out. So tiny teams are the future, and I can share it with you and Vivek share it with the team, right? So she was given like about 7, 8 examples. These are startups, right? So these are not your famous companies, right? So there's a company called Olive. It's a consumer app, 6 million ARR with 5 people. Cal AI, it's a calorie tracker, 12 million ARR with 4 people. Chatbase, AI chat, 5 million ARR with 11 people. Submagic, AI caption, 7 million ARR with 14 people. Solly.ai, AI for homework, 4 million ARR with 6 people. So these are the kind of numbers you're talking about, right? And this is kind of to me, this is the punchline. This is the punchline. I don't need to say anything more, right? So we are talking about, we are entering basically an era of, it's almost like every knowledge professional can be supercharged now, right, with technology. And I like to kind of draw an example of, right, when I was kind of graduating, the tools that were there for us as fresh graduates were spreadsheets, PowerPoint, Google search. I mean, I would argue that a lot of people in the consulting firms and investment banks, Google searching was like a big capability and to be able to make a good deck.
And before that, they had to go to libraries or whatever and
Yeah.
look for information and
And out was available. Absolutely extra. Absolutely. I mean, I would argue that if somebody was good at Google search in 2006, 7, you actually were better.
very valuable.
Your chance of getting promoted and be more productive were higher because you were able to cull out information very quickly. Right? Your boss came and said, we have to pitch this. Can you find the market size of this? The analyst who was the quickest to run Google quickly extract web links. Right? So now imagine like just put that on steroids today, right? So you have perplexities, you have like code generation tools, you have, chat GPT, DeepSeek. So I think basically every knowledge professional uh, can be massively supercharged today, right? Which kind of has a lot of implications from that perspective. So I think, and coming to specifically from a talent perspective, I think every professional today has to almost reframe their own job, how they look at themselves. And this has nothing to do with whether you are in Flightbase or Google or anywhere. These are kind of fundamental things that you have to look through, right? I mean, you are going to now live in a world like this where you are going to compete with people who are 5 people getting together and getting from 0 to 5 million ARR in like few months and then to 100 million ARR in like whatever 2 years or something.
So let's dissect it a little. No, and when a 4-person team is reaching 5 million, 5 billion ARR, what does it mean? Like what are those 4 people doing? Do they have one product manager, one developer, one business development? Like how is a 4-person team able to ship a product, generate revenue, do all the functions that a typical startup would need like 40, 50 people to do?
Yeah. I think there are 2 or 3 things that are happening right now. So some of them are tactical and maybe a moment in time. So I don't know if they'll be sustainable. And some are actually kind of long-term secular movements. I think a moment in time, and which is why I think companies like Flightbase or anyone else has to be super fast, is that right now there are massive budgets being allocated in general by enterprise customers and by consumers also, right? Like today, I don't think any of us were used to paying for consumer products. Like Google used to give everything to for free. But today, you look at the monetization of a chat GPT or a perplexity, it is insane.
And these are all consumers who are just getting value with, they're paying for it.
Exactly. And you have kind of students and people are having multiple of these products. So people are spending like $20, 5 products, $100 a month. It was unheard of because you are last 10, 15 years was all free tools, right? So I think there is, because everyone is kind of understanding that, look, I need to kind of become an expert in using this. I need to become native to these tools. Similarly, enterprises are saying, and again, it is in the realm of I don't know. So I have to experiment, right? So there is a massive opportunity where customers are leaning in. And even giving the example, I mean, whatever I've seen of the flight-based journey in the last 2.5 years, as we have kind of, been there, there was so much of customer education, going out into the ecosystem. Uh, Now I think maybe you should expect the tables to be turned, where your customers or your channel partners will be coming to you and saying, "Boss, what is now flight base in AI?
And what can I experiment
And what
with?
can I experiment with? What can we do together? What can we ship out? What are the new use cases that we can run now?" So they are earlier you were pushing. So it's a push versus pull.
Everybody is trying to figure out like what does AI mean to them,
Exactly.
and there is an opportunity for at least moment in time, as you said, that
Exactly.
can be deliver on those expectations of the customer.
Exactly. And that helps you to kind of learn and build a muscle memory of being fast. And then there'll, I'm sure, be a steady state. I think a lot of them will churn out. I think we will know
Right.
in probably in the next 12 to 24 months that what percentage of that was experimental revenue versus sticky revenue, right? And those things will happen, right? But you can't be behind the hour.
Right.
So I think one is that.
One is that, but even given that, even then, no, 4 people team, they are still building something which they are able to monetize, do everything. 4 people team, right? Otherwise, typically you would like have one person in HR, one person in product, one person in like how does this team of 4 people look like?
Totally. No, I think, and I think that is what is happening. I think with the amount of software that is there around, and especially with kind of the new AI tools, I think a lot of the functions are merging now. And that's why I'm almost giving like, there is almost a, you're almost having like Iron Man in a lot of cases, right? Like there's a person who can actually think of an idea, think of a use case, go and build an MVP without using a developer, right? Like there was this whole
Like much end to end single.
so able to, yeah, there is today no justification for if you are a PM for you to not be able to code out an MVP.
And basically ship.
Yeah. Why should you be doing mocks? And you don't need to like go and negotiate with some engineering leader that can you give me one developer, can you give me one backend, this, that. Just go and build a POC and put it out and test your hypothesis, right? So people are becoming very full stack, right? I mean, there are of course the extreme scenarios will start playing out where you don't need to be a developer to build products, right? I mean, that will happen, but even the existing developers are getting really turbocharged, right? I mean, there are a lot of data statistics now about 40-50% of code is
Developers will basically go towards being product managers and product managers go towards developers. So finally,
absolutely
like a 1 person team going from idea to
absolutely. They're just tiger teams that are happening. I think second is also the go-to-market side. Uh, I think what has happened is, especially the smarter people in the last few years have realized and have built audiences, right? I think social media, content, various distribution channels have almost come to a tipping point, right? Where if you know your ICP, if you are able to, and a lot of this doesn't require headcount to understand your ICP, understand your pain point, discover positioning through iterations. If you hit that point, you can grow like crazy. So there is a, so basically, I think a way to look at it is in a one line is there is a lot of leverage in the system now, both on product and slash engineering and on distribution, which is enabling. So this is only an outcome of that. And it's, I won't say this is the, not every team is like, and this is the challenge that I think the pre-AI startups, the unicorns of the last 10 years, plus the incumbents are facing today. Because their org structures and their culture was built for that era.
right, right, right. So what is this new? So no new org structure in a way. Is it like just single person team doing all of this, and then what kind of shift do you see in the mindset, and how do you bring about that shift in the mindset? Especially like we discussed, there are teams that are AI native that started like less than a year ago, and they're already like they are starting from this mindset versus teams that started more than a year ago and they need to go through this transition. So do you have any any observations on how these teams are making this transition happen?
Yeah, look, I think it really comes down to every individual has to take the responsibility for it, right? You have to, I mean, it's, and that's why I think I want to frame this more in the context, less in the context of companies and jobs, and more in the context of careers.
Individuals and
That every individual has to step up, learn these tools, look at your own way of working, look at how you can increase your productivity. I am, so this is literally what I'm doing right now as a VC, which is I'm literally making, I keep looking at all the tasks that I do on a daily basis, which is reach out to founders, react to cold DMs, go out and meet people, make notes of those meetings, crunch those notes, send outbound emails to LPs, meet with my co-investors, right? There are about 10 or 12 things I'm doing on a daily basis. So now I'm actively saying, what is it that I can automate? What is it that I can create leverage into? right? What is it that for example, I'm a very big kind of blogger and podcaster, and it takes a lot of effort to produce a podcast, to edit it, right? So I'm proactively looking out today on the internet, on X, and saying which is a cool new podcasting tool that can help me create clips, because it's so time consuming for me to create clips. So it's a marketing problem, right? So there is, you have to have today a massive amount of individual responsibility, and I call it enterprise, right? Everyone has to be enterprising enough to reinvent themselves.
So, what are the biggest mistakes that you see people making? Because no, you must be coming across teams no, who are doing it well, and other teams who are not doing so well.
Yeah.
What are the biggest mistakes that people are making that you would like to highlight?
Um, I think one is just not having a sense of urgency. I think that's kind of I think the biggest mistake. It's a more mindset thing, right? And look, I mean, all these tools are actually making a job easier, right? So this is actually more of a softer challenge. It's a more mindset challenge right now.
Is this a matter of that learning?
Yeah, it's not a technical challenge. It's not like you're learning to code, right? I mean, these things have become so simple. So it's literally more of a mindset. How do you take inertia out of the system, basically? And that's why if you see, again, to kind of go back to what Elon did and what Zuck did like 2.5 years back, they had to shake the system. And so that's why they had to be so rough around it. So just to make that point, Elon fired 70% of the Twitter team. And I said, I'm actually going to make my product better with 30% team, when he did it. Right. Zuck did the same thing. Complete, like, all organizations today within Meta, all orgs are flat now. Right. So literally it's the only two functions that are there is the people setting the vision and the strategy and the direction. And then there are people who are owning KPIs, direct KPIs. And to me, in a team, there are only two things that matter. You should build stuff and you should sell stuff. And unfortunately, what happened in the last 10 years in tech, and I'm sure this is everywhere, even in India, then there was a third job which was created, which was not building and selling. It was some sort of communication, fake work, right?
Managing the team.
Managing a team, this, that, coordination, program management, Excel sheet, who did what, right?
Right.
So all that is, I think now people are just going to brass tacks. So if an Elon or a Zuck can go there
With such massive teams.
with such massive teams, so I think it is. So to answer your question, I think it's lack of urgency. Second is the leadership not having courage to take these tough decisions. If the leaders don't have the courage to reinvent themselves, to reinvent the company strategy, to re-architect the back end, to change the way the product is, the user experience is, because new things are possible now.
Right.
So then that the leaders have to set the example. And everyone is a leader in their own right. Right? There is a founder, CEOs, and there are functional leaders, then your tiger team, and then you are managing some interns or some analysts. Like, everyone is a leader. So there are people looking up to each person. So that person again has to have the sense of urgency and the courage to say, boss, we have to make those hard calls. Otherwise, we will be obsolete. That 2, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million ARR doesn't matter. It's gone.
Right. And now, no, people who are at the receiving end of this, like Zug cleared up this entire middle management and Elon did what he did. Uh, what are these people doing in the valley? Like you must be.
Yeah. So I have 4 things that actually I wanted to walk through. 4 points. And these are actually not what people are doing, because this is playing out. And this is a point, I mean, I've been writing about it a lot, I think, and the reason I'm writing is that it's hitting a lot of my friends, a lot of our family friends, a lot of people that I work with, ex-colleagues. It's hitting them hard, right? And it is having very big personal implications for people, right? I mean, it's kind of, you're at that life stage, family, and there's a certain lifestyle, cost structure, compensation that you're used to, and then suddenly you're like, boss, everything like that compensation structure cannot be supported in a 4-member team. Right? So I've been thinking about this issue a lot. So I have 4 kind of my own observations or hypotheses in terms of what needs to happen for, and generally for any person, it could be at any stage of their career, right? I think there are 4 things that are going to be very important. I think first is, so the way I think about it is that what is AI driving as a change? As a result, what should a knowledge professional do now? Right. So first is, I think there is going to be a uh, lot of importance of domain expertise and quality of insight. And the reason is that because AI is democratizing general knowledge. So earlier, 10 years back, when I wrote a blog on how to fundraise for a startup, right? It was very differentiated. Today, any freaking analyst at a firm can go to ChatGPT and then spew out a 2-page article
This has more details.
which have more detail, which are every tip from Fred Wilson to Mark Andreessen to everyone. Sequoia has done this, Axel did that. Like he'll just crunch it, right? So how do you? So what? So the only thing that then matters is your own insight on something, and that insight can only come from going deep into things. And that's why and domain expertise is actually not a strong enough word. I think insight is a better word. That you what you are trying to get to your work on a day-to-day basis, whether it's marketing or it's product or it is sales or engineering, it needs to have some critical, deep, differentiated insight. That is what your company will see. That is what your customers will see. That is what your every investors will see. That is what people will react to. That's how you will stand out.
Way to look at it could be like everybody is using ChatGPT or
Yeah.
Claude or whatever,
Yeah.
but the kind of outcomes you will get after discussions with
Yeah.
Claude will be very different based on who is doing that discussion,
Absolutely.
where you nudge it and what kind of questions you ask. And
Absolutely. And I've run some experiments because I'm a massive content creator myself, where anything that I write um, or record, when there is a differentiated insight, people immediately react to it. They're like, oh, that is. And when you see stuff being churned out of ChatGPT,
Right.
you can see on LinkedIn, like immediately you're like, boss, you kind of switch off.
Right.
You know, it's very kind of cookie cutter, right? So I think qualitative insight is very important. So everyone needs to get to that level, which by definition requires going deep either into sectors or functions, right? So that's one. Second is, I think, creativity. So I think AI is basically going to, it is already automating a lot of the what I call as L1 problem statements, right? Which was basic automation, basic program management. How do I track something? How does that person tell me that this got done? Jira, Confluence type work, pulling some ticket, putting some document. All this is gone.
Right.
So now, by definition, that means human beings will have to move to L2, L3 problem statements, deeper problem statements. We'll have to go deep into your domain, into your companies, whatever challenges you are, whatever problems you're trying to solve for customers. And by definition, that requires creativity because those are harder problems. And which, again, it is debatable how much will AI ramp up to be able to solve it. But the more deep you're going, you'll have to basically pick on higher order problems, which will require creative problem solving. You will have all the compute to be able to use it. But there'll be something that the human brain has to do.
Like maybe it is suggesting you multiple options, but you still need to have that kind of gut feel or whatever.
Yeah.
This is the option that I would like to go ahead with. Taking those bets and
Correct. In a non-trivial way, which is some of it is judgment, human experiences, what we are observing in the world, right? So I think creativity is going to be very important. I think third is there is going to be a lot of emphasis of in-person relationships and offline communities. I think one of the other things that's happening is because of AI is automating everything. There's a lot of content, there's a lot of social media. Everyone has followers. Everyone is creating distribution channels. It's all baseline now, right? Everyone has 7, 8,000 followers on LinkedIn. So now, conversely, what actually matters is deep relationships. What matters is creating very small, very engaged communities, groups of people, rallying them around very specific missions, goals, and values. And that is where non-trivial outputs will come or non-trivial collaboration will happen. Similarly, on sales or on as a founder, in-person relationship building, the human to human connect, that is when new things will get created. Okay. Which will not which will not happen on on online platform, right? So third is I would say offline communities and in person. And then fourth is authenticity. And again, this is another implication of what AI is doing, right? So AI basically is driving standardization and technology. That's the first role that they play, right? Like it's like everything becomes a database, right? So AI is standardizing blog, AI is standardizing somebody's LinkedIn profile, AI is standardizing resume, AI is standardizing PRD formats, AI is standardizing designs, mocks, what should a proposal look like, what should a marketing collateral, everything is standard, everything will look same. If I go to ChatGPT, if all of us do the same prompt, we'll get the same output, right? And it's standard. And it'll keep getting better, but everyone will have that. So in that, how do you stand out? How do you differentiate as a professional, as a company? And the only way is to you have to bring your authentic voice to it. It applies both to people and to companies, right? People, bring your personality, bring your unique experience or what you stand for. What do you believe in? What is the rabbit hole that you are willing to go down for 10 years and you are willing to fight, or your belief systems, right?
So if I were to say, like, in every dimension, you have to go deeper. So you have to go deeper. So whether it is relationship, whether it is
Yeah.
like whatever domain or authenticity.
Yeah. You have to basically, you don't be afraid to bring your personality to the world, because everyone is going to, it's almost like that dystopian, like Equilibrium and a lot of those Christopher Nolan movies.
And then how do you stand out from that now new baby?
Yeah, it's like a million humanoids, right? So imagine AI is almost, there is a humanoid behind each of us as software, right? So it's giving a very standard out baseline to everyone.
To go beyond that.
Yeah, yeah. So authenticity. So I would say these are four, and these are my hypotheses. So I don't know if they're playing out. Some people are doing it. This is what I feel needs to happen: domain expertise, insights, creativity, offline communities and in-person relationships, and authenticity.
But how does it relate now? So you mentioned that you have friends and family who is affected by all of this change. What is it that they are doing to overcome it? How are they coping up with this?
Yeah, so I think, so a lot of them are, for example, there were a lot of people who went into a comfort zone, right, in the last 10 years of not going out, not meeting people, not attending these kind of events. It's very easy to do your 9 to 5 job.
The change or what is happening in the industry?
Yeah, so you are a whatever, like a engineering manager at Salesforce.
Life is settled.
You come 9 o'clock, do your work, 5, take your RSUs, chill, weekend pay, go to a pool, right? So I think now people are realizing that, oh, when I am kind of quote unquote and unemployable, then the people who will actually need to help me are my networks and my relationships, right? But then you have not spent time on that. So I think that's a big thing where people are now really moving out, and that's why you see everyone. I think LinkedIn's whole engagement is just going out of whack. That's one of the reasons everyone is realizing that everyone and each of us needs to have distribution of some kind, that authenticity, all that domain expertise, insights. Once all that is there, you have to showcase it. So I think that's a big change that's happening. I think I have a very controversial take on this. I discuss it a lot with my wife as well, which is I feel a lot of people will actually just tap out of tech. I don't think there is a large weight of uh, people who are actually unemployable, and they'll have to kind of change career tracks, go into other businesses, maybe become entrepreneurs, not like tech founders, but start businesses.
So networking is maybe one aspect of it, but they also need to reskill themselves or be able to do that full stack stuff that they had not been doing for last 10 years.
Exactly. So I think one of my underlying thoughts, which again I wrote, sorry, I have the specific note because I want to make sure people take away, instead of fluff, more structured thoughts. I think this is, the market is now pushing everyone to, in a way, become an entrepreneur.
Have that founder mindset.
Yeah. So you need to know how to build. You need to know how to sell what you build. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be you yourself, just selling yourself, you are the product, right? Everyone needs to be in that founder mindset.
So just being a developer is not good enough, but understanding what the customer really wants so that you are able to go full stack, right? From understanding the problem, designing the solution and implementing and delivering. So all of those.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, you are now, earlier we used to, I mean, I worked in big companies where like, oh, I need a designer to create the mock in Figma. I have this idea, but I need this person to do this. Today, boss, you have no excuse. Everything is there. Go and take a budget, buy a $20 subscription or whatever tool is there, code it out, make a mock, make a product, make a web app, take it to the customer, validate it.
So people need to then kind of step up and push themselves that why am I not able to go full stack?
Yeah.
Right. So
Absolutely.
So that brings me to the next question, which is like we discussed what is happening in the valley and what kind of changes we are seeing. And now when you look at India, so you have been in India for last few days.
Yeah.
Uh, how is Indian system looking to you? Like, is it already waking up to that realization, or there is a latency between the reality and what's happening in India?
No, I think Indian companies are, I think they're reacting fairly quickly to this. I think at least the Indian tech ecosystem, even look at the large companies, tech companies, to startups, they are all fairly integrated into the valley. They know what's going on there.
But you see those kind of 4 people teams pulling.
Not that, but there is a at least a sense of urgency. So they're trying to shake things up. They're trying to do different things. My in general view, just based on kind of 15 years of operating and investing in the corridor, is India typically has a minimum 12-month lag from the US and could be as high as 24 months also. So typically, whatever starts transpiring there,
Understand.
and this is more tech, not at an economy level, more in the tech ecosystem, that it kind of take up,
Adopting those.
yeah, about a year for the same things that people start learning that, oh, like I don't need 100 people for this product.
So, like, have you come across now teams in India who are operating in that AI native way?
Yeah, so I mean, all the new startups are kind of pretty. They're all trying to kind of operate in that way. I think there's enough information out there. There's no information asymmetry.
Are there teams like what you described at Facebook or no, in X and other places? Are there any examples for us to see that in India there was a like 100+ people team which existed from say last 5+ years and they have been able to transform themselves into an AI native?
India, I don't have a view into the big tech ecosystem. I think my view is more US from a big tech perspective. And big tech, I can tell you, I mean, it is a chalk and cheese change right now. So, I mean, to share one example, if you look at Google, I mean, it was the most cushiest job in the Bay Area, and I think even in India for the last whatever 10 post IPO, since IPO. People, it was literally, I mean, it was the running joke was that anyone, so there were developers. So one was Eric Schmidt made it famous, right? That only 200 people create all the market cap in Google, and everyone else just goes out with buckets to cash the money, right? So that's been the running joke. It's such a profitable company. It's the generation. It's like I don't have to really put in any effort. You're doing nothing. It's a pure monopoly, right? And just running like it's a juggernaut. Now, this is the first time in the last 1 year, and especially in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 months, and I've really deep insights into like operationally what they're doing. There is a fire has been lit under everyone in Google, and when Google wakes up, then you know that is changing. I mean, Zuck and all these guys, that's all well documented. But Google waking up, right? And I mean, Satya, what Satya is doing with Microsoft. So, and these are huge companies. So it's very painful for the so much to have. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go into the details, but there is a full massive product partnerships org that just got eliminated, right? At Google. It just wiped out, which is not unheard. I mean, Google was known as a company that never fired anyone. It was actually as close to, I mean, these are the jokes, right? That it was like a government job.
So like how does it play out? Because people are so used to seeing or looking at companies operate in a certain way. Like you mentioned, Google, nobody gets fired out. Yeah, suddenly now they are wiping out the entire product org. How is the sentiment? How are people reacting to it? And like, does Google still have that positive sentiment about building something big, or people are just running away? Means this is something bad is happening here, or this is not the place for.
No, I think everyone is kind of realizing that look, this is the need of the hour. I think it is that wartime versus peacetime, right? So this is wartime because these are existential risks, right? I mean, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that if Google is not on top of the game, then maybe not Perplexity will eat some of their pie, but then the way Google ate Alta Vista and Excite, and then Yahoo subsequently, right? I mean, Yahoo was the dominant internet company, and it just got wiped out in a matter of like 5 7 years. It became like a distant also ran. So these things very creep up on you, right? So there's a massive sense of urgency. I think for talent, it is a moment of reckoning. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think it's all playing out. I mean, this is all very fresh. I'm just telling you what is really happening.
There are two sides to this story. So one side is the organization is really waking up and trying to make this massive change, and then people perceive it as a toxic place and like why suddenly something changing so massively. We used to have all this fun things and everything. Why are not behaving or talking a very different way. That is one side of the story. The other side of the story is there are individuals who want to be in that position because they want to keep up and skill themselves and operate in that founder concept way, but they are stuck in organizations which have probably not yet realized or which are being run by those management guys who are with that founder mindset themselves.
Totally.
So it is that kind of mismatch on both sides. So how should people think about it? And people on this side where organization wants to move fast, but they are perceiving it as a toxic place versus the other place where the place is not moving fast enough.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, look, all these changes, fortunately or unfortunately, we are at a moment of change. And so there's nothing to do with, I mean, how it is executed that can lead to toxic behavior, right? In most of these cases, in most companies, they're executing it in a very good way, right? From kind of whatever sevens packages to people being treated fairly. It is just a need of the hour, right? So I don't think that is being perceived. I've not seen that. Well, most kind of sane people are saying that, look, this is a moment of change. This is actually a feedback for me, and I have to kind of reinvent myself. And so they are looking for, and that's why there's a lot of excitement right now towards joining AI native companies, right? And I think we are still very early. I think probably 24 months down the line, as we come to some sort of a steady state on
People have already
on our budgets, then orgs will start getting rewrite. Right now, orgs actually are unclear. That is the biggest problem.
what should be the job role, where
Yeah.
should the boundaries be.
Yeah, so I don't blame the companies. If I was a leader and I was running a company, I'm like, I don't know how many PMs to hire for this right now. And I'm hearing all these data. So I'm like, why am I hiring all these new fresh engineers? Right. And so I think that will take, and then on the customer side, how much of the revenue is sticky, right? How much of it will churn out? What are the real budgets? What is a competitive landscape? How much capital do I need to raise?
So all those playbooks that existed a year ago or 2 years ago, now they are just not applicable.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
The way we used to hire, the way the job descriptions here, way we used to use our whatever tool chains to get the job done, everything is changing. Everything is being rewritten.
Totally. There's no playbook. Like I have no playbook. I'm not seeing anyone with a playbook. People are there are hypotheses. There are some things that are clear, which are that org should be leaner.
Foundational thing.
Foundational things are there. Yeah, that should be leaner. It should be more full stack, right? So those changes are happening. But beyond
How
that,
exactly to do that and how.
and a lot of question marks are there.
Right. So I'm building a high signal community of everybody who is excited about AI and want to learn from each other upon how to actually use AI for everyday work at an enterprise. So at a company, whatever different things that we do, right from say marketing to product development to sales to customer success, everything. So we are trying to build a community where we can discuss those hacks and help each other quickly accelerate and move at AI speed, move 10x, 100x faster than what we used to do. So join this community, become a part of this, and we will have more sessions. We regularly do Thursday meetups. So every Thursday we do an online session where we share certain hacks that have actually worked for us so that everybody can benefit from them. We would like to have more people participating in that and sharing their hacks as well. So we are doing that every Thursday, webinars. And other than that, it's a Slack channel where everybody is welcome to come and contribute. So again, thanks everyone for joining.